Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this, and welcome to the WP Builds newsletter number 16. This covers the week commencing the 4th of June 2018, and it's entitled WordPress in 7 kilobytes, Malware eating malware, and an underwater data center. Yeah, lots of goodies in store. A couple of things first. Number one, if you go to wpbuilds.com/deals, you can find the coupon codes and the links for the latest deals that we've got. At the moment, we've got 20% off Toolset and 25% off your main WP licenses. So worth checking that out. Also, if you go to wpbuilds.com, a funny way of saying it, /subscribe, you can find a very unattractive page full of buttons indicating the many different ways that you can stay in touch with WP Builds. Probably the best one is the newsletter by filling out the form, or the Facebook Messenger box. Then there's other things like the Slack channel and the Facebook group. The Facebook group has now got over 1.1 thousand people in it, so it's really very useful indeed, and lots of people helping each other out all the time. Okay, let's get started. Right, the first news article today is all about Gutenberg, and it's Gutenberg version 3.0, which was released on the 5th of June. There is now a really beautiful blocks library so that you can see the UI is really lovely, actually. It's little buttons arranged in three columns, and it looks really attractive, actually, and it's just a nice way of organizing the way it looks. And now, if you're a developer, you can actually have child blocks, so you can have buttons within buttons, if you know what I mean, and there's a nice UI queue that something is nested below it. There's, as always with Gutenberg, there is masses. The changelog is absolutely huge. There's probably 50 or 60 items in there. So if you've been playing with Gutenberg, probably a good idea to go and check it out and get yourself updated. Right, the next one is a guy called Jack Lennox, Lenox, and this is at blog.jacklennox.com. He's decided that he wants to build a WordPress page with the tiniest payload possible, and he's managed to get WordPress down to 6 kilobytes. He's actually added in a further kilobyte to make it 7 because he wants it to be SEO friendly. He's added on Yoast SEO metadata as well, which has added another K. His take on this is that every time a WordPress page or any web page is created, you are in fact using an amount of energy from a data center usually, and the CO2 emissions from the internet now apparently equal that of the airline industry. So every time we search for a page, we are of course causing a little bit of pollution, and he wants this to be as minimal as possible. Now, he's gone in an interesting direction. He's got rid of menus and put it in a separate page. He's not including images, and he's stripped out any web fonts, that kind of thing. It's certainly an interesting subject, and if you've got a page which is purely text and that's all you need, this might be a way of doing it. Not only will you save the environment to some extent, but you'll also be incredibly fast loading, so that's quite interesting. Okay, the next one is over at the WP Tavern. There is a plugin that I've never actually used, which is called Simple::Press Forum plugin. And apparently it's up for sale. It's been going for absolutely ages. I think it's been going for like 12 years or something along those lines. And the guys that run it have decided they can no longer put the time in it. It says they're retiring. I think, does that mean age? I don't know, but they're retiring, and they're hoping to find a buyer for it. It's very popular. It's got lots and lots of downloads. So if that's you and you're interested, go and check it out. The next one I really like. This is from WordFence, and this is the Baba Yaga malware. This is just fascinating and shows how good the bad guys are at doing things, because they've discovered this Baba Yaga malware, and basically what it does is it goes in and it cleans up a WordPress install of other malware. The idea being that it creates spam links. So if you get infected by this, it tries to just generate nonsense spam stuff for Google to find so that they can then generate affiliate link sales. But the principle is, if you're on a website and other malware takes it down, well, that's not good for your spam links. So it endeavors to clean up your website from other malware so that its own malware is the only one present and doing as well as it can. There's a little more to it than that, but just these guys, the bad guys, are so good at doing things. It's utterly fascinating. The next one is a friend of the podcast. This is the Wallace Inline website, and Bradley's been on the podcast talking about it. If you use Beaver Builder, this plugin enables you to add extra functionality to the inline editing capabilities. And just really a bit of a shout out to him. He reached out to me to say we've added lots of updates. So yeah, that's great. You can see in the change log, which is in the main menu, lots of updates over the last few days. But also he's very soon to end his lifetime subscription plan. I think there's a handful of licenses left. So if this is your thing and you think you might want to take it on board, get in quickly because it's going to be going away soon. Okay, I do like to see a plugin updated, and Bradley's done a good job. Thanks, Bradley. Okay, the next one is Ultimate Add-ons for Elementor. They have added the image gallery widget. What is there to say about this really? There's all sorts of fun features that you can do. If you go and look at the page, you can see what it's able to do. It does categorization, does light boxes, grid, masonry, carousel, all of that kind of stuff. Filter, Instagram type filters, that kind of thing. It's a gallery widget, but it's a good one. And if you're an Elementor user and you're using Ultimate Add-ons, then nice to know that this is now a feature. A couple of weeks ago, we had Amir from Toolset on the podcast, and he was talking about post relationships, and these are tricky things to do. You know, it's one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many, and over at the WP Mayor website, Mayor, they've got a tutorial on how to use this, when you might use it, and how you can implement it. It's really good. It explains something which is actually quite complicated and boils it down into probably about a 15-minute read, and so is worth looking at. Yeah. The next one, I've never used this, but there is a SaaS e-commerce solution called BigCommerce, and according to the ecommercebytes.com website, there is now a WordPress plugin for BigCommerce. Now, I'm guessing that what this does is it pulls in that SaaS solution into WordPress so that you don't have to worry about your WordPress install handling customers and shipping stuff, you know, all the stuff that something like WooCommerce would do. And you can actually hand that over to BigCommerce, which will take care of it for you. Like I say, I've never used it before, but if you're into e-commerce and WooCommerce is frustrating you, this might be something that potentially a client might be interested to look at. BigCommerce integrating with WordPress. Okay, next one. Facet WP have introduced something called the Layout Builder. Now, Facet WP is a plugin which enables you to create searches. So, for example, you might want to filter down your custom post type of cars to only ones made by Audi or BMW, or only ones with a car stereo with Android in it, or something like that. And this allows you to filter search results. Well, they've got this new layout builder, which reminds me a lot of the days I was using Drupal with Drupal views, and it can create really, really complicated queries very, very simply, and then you just embed it with a shortcode. I really like it. I think that the possibilities are enormous. So if you're a Facet WP user and some of the things have been frustrating, well, this is great. Go and check it out. It's definitely worth it. Okay, WP Engine, I've got a post all about the fact that AWS is now, AWS Translate, I should say, is now available for WordPress. I think we've seen this before on a few sites. I've never used it, but it's using Amazon's speech engine to turn text into speech, and the idea being that if you've got a blog post and it's very long, maybe you can reach a bigger and a different audience if you enable audio, and it tries to read that audio out in a clever way, so it pauses in the right place and puts the lilt and the rise and the fall in, and WordPress I think could definitely do with something like this, and Amazon seems to be a good custodian of that, so maybe worth checking out what WP Engine have got to say about it. Okay, the last WordPress one is again going back to WordFence. Now, until recently, if you wanted to do testing on a local environment or a dev environment, WordFence's premium solution wouldn't work for you. You'd have to buy an additional license. Well, what they've decided to do now is if you use the subdomain staging or stage or STG or new or dev or test whatever your website is, they'll honor your premium license on those subdomains, so you can test it in the exact environment that you would be testing it. So obviously when you go live and then install WordFence, you can be sure that nothing is going to go wrong. Nice little update, and worth mentioning. Okay, these last three are nothing to do with WordPress, but here we go. The first one is Samsung's Chromebook Plus now supports Linux apps. It's a little bit of a complicated thing to do, but essentially Chrome OS is now capable of running Linux apps, and obviously if you're into using Linux as your OS of choice, it's quite nice to know that you can pick up a cheap Chromebook and it will run Linux apps. Now it's a little bit complicated, and from my understanding it doesn't always work, and sometimes it's a little bit faffy to get it running, but still go and check out the Verge article and you can see if this is something that you want to deploy in your Chromebook. The next one is fascinating. Microsoft have decided in Scotland to stick a data center in something that looks like like a submarine, but without any windows. And then they've just put it underwater in cold Scottish water. And the idea is this data center will go underwater for several years. Obviously, nobody's going to go in and update anything. The hardware is just, when it fails, it'll just fail. But the idea is that it'll save energy because it's going to be permanently cold. Now, we all know Scotland's water is very cold, and so the idea is you submerge it, you leave it there for a couple of years, bring it back up, pull all the computers out, put new ones in, stick it underwater again in order to keep it cold. I think it's fascinating. Why don't they just do this in Alaska or something instead, would be my question. Why go to the length of putting it underwater? Anyway, there you go. Interesting. And this last one, this is just something that I came across, and it's got nothing to do with WordPress at all, or technology in a sense, but it does. I downloaded this app called Be My Eyes, and it's available for Android and iOS. And essentially what it does is, if a blind person, let's imagine a scenario where a blind person goes to the fridge and pulls out a container of milk, but knows that there's two containers of milk and one of them is old. They don't know which one is what's the sell-by date, what's the use-by date. So the idea of this app is, in any situation, a blind person can tap the app and can point the camera at something, and you get a call. Now, there's there's tens of thousands of people just with the app sitting there waiting to receive a call. And when somebody says, I need some assistance, it just goes to the first person. And if they don't pick up, it just keeps trying multiple people. And the idea is that you help somebody and then you hang up and say goodbye, and you don't really get to know them. You just have this tiny interaction. And I just think, what a nice thing. So I've installed it. I'm waiting for the first person to get in touch with me. But there you go. Okay, thanks very much for listening to this once again. I hope that you enjoy your week, and I'll see you on Thursday for the WP Builds podcast. Bye-bye for now.